Hey everybody, welcome back to D-Town TV, the weekly show for DSLR shooters. My name is Matt Klaskowski.
I'm Scott Kelby, and we've got a great show for you. Today we've got a special guest, Mr. David Ziser, famous wedding photographer, is going to be doing some stuff for you. We've got Cheap Shots with Larry Becker.
Cheap
Shots is back, and we're going to start things off with Matt. Now you had an on-location tip for us about shooting into the sun and making lens flare work for you.
Yep, let's go check it out. Well, this time around, we're going to take a look at something a little bit different, and that is shooting into the sun. It's a style that I happen to like, and it's a style that I see a lot out there lately. And you'll see it in advertising, surf advertising. You'll see it in family portraits where shooting a family at the beach or outdoors anywhere, shooting into the sun, using lens flare, using the sun as part of the photo. It gives a very fun, very dynamic, a very energetic type of a style to a photo. All right, so there's a couple things that a couple tips that I can give you when you're doing this. The first one, the time of day. When the sun is lower in the sky is going to be your best. So earlier in the morning or later in the evening. It's about 45 minutes before sunset here, and that's a really good time to do this type of shooting because you can position the sun behind your subjects. All right, if you're doing it in midday, you want the sun behind your subject, but if the sun's straight up, you're going to have to get really down low. Okay, so time of day is a big one. The other one is where you're going to point your camera. All right, well, generally when you're framing this, you want to put the sun right behind the person, okay, and then you're just going to move off to the left or off to the right a little bit. All right, and that's the idea, is to get the sun right behind them, and then you just move just so a little bit of that sun just kind of peeks through, whether it's their arms or anything like that. You just want a little bit of sun, or you can position the sun in a corner of the frame where you pretty much block it out, but just a little bit is peeking through, and you're actually going to see that lens flare as you're looking through your viewfinder. A couple things about that. Be careful where you put the lens flare. You don't want little spots going over somebody's eye or something like that. So be very careful where that lens flare appears. Again, you'll be able to see this in your viewfinder. One of the other things, you want to shoot in RAW mode, okay? It's hard to give you an exact exposure for this. What's going to be the perfect exposure where you know that you've nailed it? A lot of times it's very creative when you're doing this type of work. You want to make sure you shoot in RAW so that you've got a lot of latitude on the post-processing side of this if you wanted to brighten or darken the photo. Okay, and so what we're going to do here is I'm actually just going to take a couple of photos of our couple over here, Michael and Alexis. And you'll kind of see, as I work with them, where I'm trying to position them, and I'll kind of give you some cues as where the sun is in those photos as well. All right, guys, so just get together and just play and have fun. That's where this really works best, is when you're just moving around and you're pulling at each other. Perfect. Great. Get a little closer together. Kiss. Perfect, perfect. Great. So, what are some of the things that was going on there? Well, if you notice, whenever I'd get them into position, I was waiting a second, and that's because I was just slightly recomposing. When they were moving around, they were blocking the sun, not blocking the sun, and once they stopped, I'd have to make sure just a little bit of that sun peeked out. You don't want it all out, and you don't want it all behind them. You want just a little bit of it peeking out, and that's what's going to give you that flare. That's what's going to give you that almost washed out type of a look. But remember, that's what we're going for here. Okay, very fun, energetic type of a style. Now, I'm going to throw this at you, is in between this week and next week, because I've got more tips that relate around using the sun, and we'll take a look at those in future episodes. But in between this week and next week, go out and try this, and go onto the D-Town website. So you go to kelbytv.com/dtown, give it a try, post it to your Flickr page, post it to your website, and you can do it anywhere. You can do it in front of your house, but just give it a try. I'd be interested to see your results. Let us know what worked, what didn't work, and I think a lot of other people will get a lot from that as well. All right, so thanks, Matt.
Good job, by the way.
Thank you. I did want to clarify a couple of things that we were talking about when we were out in the field, and that is, I was kind of mentioning a little bit of the difference between shooting in aperture priority and also shooting some of those types of photos in manual. And when we were out there, I was kind of jumping around between the two, but I'd shoot in aperture priority most of the time, and the main thing that you're going to do is when you go and you try to meter and you're facing the sun, you're going to have a silhouette. So that's where you'd go to your exposure compensation. You'd try +1. If +1 is still too dark, then you try +2. The other thing is that if you're shooting into the sun where you're not trying to position the sun behind the person, but actually have more of the sun to get a lot of that flare in, that's a time to switch to manual mode, because your exposure is going to go all over the place if you keep it in aperture. So you start off in aperture priority,
Right.
Get your shutter speed, get your f-stop. So let's say I'm shooting f8 and it shows me 125th of a second. I'll dial that in manual mode, and then I'll start to adjust the shutter speed after that if I need to go brighter or darker.
Cool. Hey, we're going to turn things over to Larry Becker. So Larry is an expert in getting you more bang for your buck, and it's one of the most popular segments here on D-Town, so let's check it out.
This week on Cheap Shots, I want to tell you about a DIY. This one is based on the fact that I bought a really inexpensive muslin, and I've got some light stands, and I needed a crossbar to go between a couple of light stands. I needed something at least 10.5 feet long. And those poles are about 50 bucks and take a couple of days to ship to me. Instead, I went to Walmart and I bought these. Now, these are paint poles, and I bought these at Walmart for about 6 or 7 bucks a piece, so 14 bucks between the two poles. And the way that it works is you take the first pole and just loosen it so it comes loose like this, and go out to the very end like this, and then pull it a little bit too hard, and you actually break it in half like that. So once you've got that part apart, you take the other end off the other pole. And that works like this. So we've taken the handle off one end, and we took the center out of the other one. And so now what you do is you take this pole that has a center still in it, and this pole that's the center out of the other one, and you put it together this way. You just fit it together. And so then that way, you've got the single red sleeve on the one, and the two poles, one out of a different set. Now I've got an extension pole that goes up to about 12 or 13 feet long, and it cost me 14 bucks. So there's a cheap DIY if you need a backdrop pole stand for your muslin.
All right, thanks, Larry. Hey, just want to mention, Matt, you mentioned earlier about the exposure compensation. After the break, which is coming up next, after the break, I've got a beginner's segment for you about exposure compensation. So if you were like, what's he talking about? You're going to know right after the break. We'll be right back. Stick around. We've got David Ziser. Matt's got a really cool bag to show you. We've got some really cool stuff and a giveaway today, so don't go away.
Hey, we are back, and last week we had a contest where we gave away sticky filters.
Sticky.
So the winner, if you commented on the D-Town TV website, we randomly picked a winner. The winner is Steve S.
So congratulations, Steve. We'll be sending you the sticky filters. If you didn't win, go to stickyfilters.com. You can find out about them. They're a really cool way to balance the light on your flash with the light, the ambient light in the room.
Hey, we can throw things off camera too.
Sweet.
You don't even know. All right. Hey, and continuing the series that Scott had on beginner's tips, you've got another one this week for us?
I do. Let's go check it out. And this is another one of a series of 3. So this one is about what Matt talked about earlier, a little bit about exposure compensation.
Cool.
Okay, guys, in the second part of my 3-part series for beginning photographers, I want to talk about exposure compensation, as we just mentioned. But here's the thing. What is exposure compensation? If you understand what it is, first it'll help you to be able to use it. So you ever taken a shot where you take the shot and then you look it in the back of your camera, and let's say that you're in anything from program mode to aperture priority or whatever. You take the shot, and so the camera's doing the work for you, and it takes what it thinks is the proper exposure. You look at it and you go, that's too bright, or that's too dark. Well, then what do? The camera's done its best job of making the exposure, but you don't agree with it. You're like, I don't think that's right. I can see that the sky's blown out. That's when you're going to override what the camera thinks is right and use exposure compensation. You're going to actually say, no, I'll tell you what I think is right. So you're kind of bossing the camera around. First thing you do is we'll look at on a Nikon first. On a Nikon, at the very top, there's a little button. It's the exposure compensation button. It's right next to the shutter button. You're just going to hold that down. Press the shutter button, of course, so it activates your meters. Hold it down and look inside your viewfinder. And you will see in the center of the viewfinder a little 0. And a minus to one way and a plus to the other way. So you're going to use this little control dial on the back of the camera. You're going to move to the left to brighten it or to the right to darken the exposure. So here's a typical situation when I would use it. I'm really worried about clipping my highlights and letting something get so bright that there's no detail there at all. So I leave my highlight warning on and I take a shot. So I take a shot, then I look at the back of the camera. If the LCD on the back of my camera shows an area that's blinking, I look to make sure first that it's an important area of detail. If it's the sun and it's blinking, there's nothing I can do about that. But I look to make sure it's an important area of detail and I go, ooh, the sky is completely white. The whole sky is blinking. I know that even though the camera thinks it's right, I need to do an exposure compensation. I need to darken the exposure. So then I'll press the button halfway down, then press the exposure compensation button, go to minus, just one little tick here, take the shot again and look. If it's not enough, move it again. Take the shot. Look, if it's not enough, do it again until you dial in the right exposure. Same thing happens if it's not bright enough. If it's not bright enough, you take the shot, you look and say, oh, the camera says it should be this, but I wish it was darker. Or excuse me, I wish it was brighter. Then just go the opposite way. All right, press halfway down, look, and then in this case, you'll go to the left and do the same testing. Now, if you're shooting a Canon, it's very easy, except for there's one little thing that might trick you up. On the back of the Canon, like this is a 50D, there's an on and off button. There's off, there's on, and then there's just a kind of an angled line. We call it the angled line. Make sure it goes all the way up to that angled line. And the camera will be on. But then you can use this quick control dial here in the back to adjust your exposure. So you'll take the shot and you go, whoops, that's too bright. Move it one, try it again. Move it one, try it again, until your clipping's gone. So that's how you use exposure compensation when you don't think your camera got the right exposure or you don't just agree with the exposure that the camera got. This will help take your stuff to the next level.
All right, we had David Ziser here in the studio. David Ziser is world famous wedding photographer and also author of the brand new book, Captured by the Light. Well, we got him to do a couple of tips for us this week. He's going to talk about how to read the histogram and what to look for while you're actually shooting. Well, everybody, we are back once again with David Ziser, author of Captured by the Light, and just one heck of a good wedding photographer. And welcome back again, David.
Happy to be here yet again.
Yet again.
Yet again. So, always good to visit,
yes,
all in the same day, but that's falls beside the point.
We don't let you out of here without doing at least 12 videos.
I know it. The chain is kind of affecting my ankle right now, but...
So what do you got for us today?
Well, you know what? I want to talk a little bit about exposure. Remember the last time we talked about highlight tone priority?
Yes, never heard of it. I don't believe in exposure. It's
just go with the flow, whatever. Let the lab fix it. That's what we said in the film days.
Exactly.
Because in the film days, guess what? The lab could fix it because you had much more latitude when you were shooting film. They could burn, they could dodge, whatever they needed to do to get the print.
Yeah.
Shooting digital, we don't have quite that latitude, quite as much as we did back in the film days. Even if we're shooting raw, we still don't have quite the latitude of the film days. But this isn't a film segment on D-Town TV right here. No. But what I want to talk about is exposure. We talked about highlight tone priority being a great way to save you by about one stop of overexposure, which is great. But you know what? It even helps to read the histogram. And on the Canon camera, we've got a 5-section histogram on the Canon cameras. Nikon shooters got a 4-section histogram. Now, I can't speak to the Nikon shooters, but I can maybe give a little suggestion. I find that if I'm shooting, and these are the operative words, a diffuse white, that means like a wedding gown, I want that histogram to die about 1/3 of the way in to that 5th section. Now, you might say, don't you want it really close to that right-hand side? I don't. I want it 1/3 into that 5th section. Interestingly enough, Ansel Adams, who invented the zone system, which is just a 10-segment histogram, really an abbreviated version of it, he said that the brightest white is zone 10. There's no detail at all in that. It's actually blocked up highlights. And he, by the way, said the darkest zone is zone 1, and there's no detail in the shadows. And he said zone 9 is where you really want to expose for the details in whites. The guy should know. He was hanging out in Yosemite National Park in the wintertime all the time, shooting those gorgeous snow photographs. He said always expose to zone 9. that happens to correspond to about 230 light value on the Adobe histogram, which is interestingly enough, when you put up zone 9 under 1/3 of the way into the 5th part of that histogram, that makes that histogram die right at zone 9, where Ansel wanted the detail to be in the whites. So expose it that way. If you're a Nikon shooter, it's probably about halfway into that 4th segment.
And you know, just to kind of add on to that, what a lot of people don't know is that there is a ton of information over in that brighter part of the histogram.
Oh, absolutely, positively.
I mean, it gets all kinds of technical and everything. I've read white papers on it, but there's a lot of information over there, which is why we have a lot of leeway with our digital cameras in picking detail back up inside of those areas. Very cool little tip. Hey, so we talked about author of Captured by the Light before, but you also have some other teaching available as well.
Well, you know what? You saw the digital wake-up call tour we did in 09. We actually have that coming to press. We actually took that 4.5 hours, edited it to 4.5 hours, and my ongoing complaint was I never got to tell the whole story. So
he never does.
So we filmed the whole thing. It's good fun. It's very spontaneous from the actual programs themselves.
I've been there, so I know.
And then we went back, and then we added the missing chapters. It is now a 9-hour video, 5 DVDs as I count. I'm pulling out my hair,
which is longer than the
original, but we added all the stuff I kind of cut out of the seminar. So now you got the whole picture finally. Lots of tutorials on lighting, on photography, Lightroom, Photoshop, lots of stuff, a lot of sales stuff built into it. 9 hours long, and it should be out by about now, as a matter of fact.
Oh, very cool. And I have actually attended David's seminars. Very, very good stuff. So you want to check it out, the website?
Digitalprotalk.com. There's a little ad
thingy.
for it, a little thingy on the right-hand column.
I've seen the thing. All right. Hey, thanks again for coming by.
Okay. Happy to be here again. Thanks, Matt.
All right, I have a copy of David's book right here, Captured by the Light. An unbelievable book. I mean, this thing has gotten more acclaim and more rave reviews than, well, any of my books for sure. Anyway, go check it out. Captured by the Light. Great, great book. If you're into wedding photography, it is the Bible of wedding photography.
Nice. Hey, I wanted to check out a bag here. So here comes bag. See how it just magically appears on the set. The bag is from Booq, and it's for those of you that do a lot of traveling and you want to be able to put your laptop and your camera into the same bag. Booq's got a bag. It's called the Python Blur. Runs for about $230, and the idea behind it is it'll fit a 15-inch laptop, Mac or PC, and up to a 17-inch Mac laptop. But the whole real idea behind it is you can also fit your camera in here. So if you flip it open,
it's not just a backpack for your laptop.
Flip it open, it's got this cool little top loading kind of thing up here, which is kind of neat because a lot of them usually fold around the sides here.
Right.
But this has got like a top loading thing, so you can just put the bag down, flip it open, you grab your DSLR, and it'll fit, according to their website, about 2 to 3 lenses.
Yeah.
All right,
hey, I've had a Booq bag too. These are the most well-made bags. I mean, they are insane as far as quality goes. All kinds of pockets and stuff on the sides and on the top. They have a nice pocket right up here on the top. I'm kind of walking on your thing here, Matt.
That's okay.
Great access to everything.
I've used the briefcase bag that they have quite a bit, and it is like the strongest bag that you'll find. I think it's bulletproof.
It is made to be dropped from an airplane.
It is.
At 4,000 feet.
Good stuff. We'll put the website up on the screen here for you. Go check it out.
Hey, we also want to tell you about our featured photographer before we give away something. We are going to give away something. But before we do, I want to tell you about Jeremy Cowart. So Jeremy was the guest blogger on my blog last week. So go to scottkilby.com, and every Wednesday I feature another person in the industry on there. And Jeremy is a tremendous photographer. So first, go see his website, jeremycowart.com. He's off the hook as far as a photographer goes, does a lot of entertainment stuff, but he does all these different, I love about his site is he has all these different things that are, you go to everybody's portfolio, it's people, travel, his is texture, atmosphere.
That's cool, yeah.
You know, it's very clever and it's very, very well done. He's a tremendous photographer, but beyond that, he's a tremendous guy, and if you're familiar with Help Portrait, he was one of the guys behind that. Also, he's now got a new project called Voices of Haiti, and it's very, very, that's what he talks about actually on my guest blog. So if you go to voicesofhaiti.com and learn to help out there and learn a little bit more about Jeremy and what he does. So that's it. Now it's time to give away
We got to
something.
give away.
I have something back here. Let me just grab it.
go to our giveaway section.
Our giveaway sitting back there is the back of the set.
They're waiting for the week where we go back to the printer.
Right. Ooh, yeah, we're going to have to do that. Okay. We're going to give away a copy of my book. It's a book and DVD combination called Photo Recipes Live. So I wrote the book, the digital photography book series. Well, the most popular section in the back was a part called Photo Recipes, where I said, here's how to get this shot. Well, I actually went to a studio in New York City for 2 days and did a bunch of setups from scratch to show you. So if you're into studio lighting, all that kind of stuff, this starts at scratch and takes you through all these different lighting setups, different scenarios. You can see some of the things, people, flowers, food. We shot all kinds of different stuff. We're going to give you a copy of this for free. Just go by the D-Town TV website, which is kelbytv.com/D-Town TV, and just leave us a comment. You can say anything you want, just hi, I'm from Sweden, and
give
you're
me
entered.
Photo Recipes Live.
Right. Hey, though, I do want to say a lot of people for the sticky filters left us comments and stuff, and we read every single one of them, even when there were hundreds of them. We read them all, and there were some good comments and stuff where you're saying, hey, can you guys cover this and cover that? So we're, it really helps out to get your feedback as well.
It does definitely, and I'll kind of throw something out about the DVD book combo, because it's kind of new. One of the things that I liked about it is because we watch a lot of videos, and you watch a video, you get the settings, you get the lesson, but what's cool about it is the book combo lets you just very quickly get to what you're seeing inside of the video sometimes. So
yeah.
That's what I think is a...
Yeah, if you watch the DVD and later you go, what was that thing he did? You see the pictures of it, and I actually put extra tips in here too besides. So anyway, it's kind of cool, and you can win it for free. And if it's free, it's for me.
Alrighty. That wraps up our show this week. On behalf of myself, Matt Kloskowski.
I'm Scott Kelby. We'll see you here next week for episode number 40 of D-Town TV. Take care.